I'm doing well, Dave. How about you?
I am very, very good. I got my lip-bladed friend Paul behind me hanging out for the show, and now we're going to get some very, very good stuff here from you tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, you were doing such a good job of staying still at one point. I actually looked on and was like, wait a second. Am I imagining something? Does Dave have a cupboard cutout? Wait. No, Dave doesn't have any friends. No, he has Merle. Merle's never human. Wait, what is this? But hey, look, you're a real person. Yay.
Yeah, he can move. He can move. That's for sure. But nonetheless, my friend, it's always time, and it's always good to have you here for some UFO talk. And there's quite a lot going on right now. We're going to start off with a former guest of this show, Linda Thompson, who took in a Mufon meeting in Washington, D.C. What happened there?
Yeah, so this was really interesting, and the thing was that one is we got a lot of great detail, which I'll cover some in a second. But the thing that was interesting about this was one was just the amount of data that Linda covered, but two, the fact that she specifically felt the need to call out that she had permission to share this information, which seemed a little odd to me. I was a little confused as to why she would need permission to share this information, but that stands as it is. And essentially, they talked about what are the after results of the Gillibrand Amendment, what's involved in pursuit, tracking capabilities. They talked about the intelligence community, what sort of efforts were being taken to get down to the bottom of things. There were some brief biographies of certain people taken, illustrated. There were some meetings that were specifically held on March 8th. There was a meeting with the military legislative assistant of Representative Ruben Gallego, Arizona, and the staff director of the House Armed Services Committee on Intelligence. And there's a lot here because she actually gave 28 updates. And so if I were to read all of these, it would go on for quite some time. But it was covered in beautiful detail. Linda, if you're listening, you're an angel. Thank you so much for doing this. We will supply the links to this. I highly recommend everyone go in and read this themselves. And the thing that was a little bit hard for me going through this, and I don't know if any of you will relate to this, is I don't have a whole lot of warm, fuzzy feelings about Mufon. And so it's a little challenging for me, I think, to get kind of excited about stuff they're doing. But this is good. This is really good. This is actually excellent. So I'm pleased.
What were some of the points?
Well, it was like I said, it was more just an iterative list of the different meetings that were held and who they held them with. So it was basically, for example, what was that other one? Representative Darren LaHood of Illinois and Senate staffers. Wasn't said specifically why they met with him. And so basically what it does is it goes through and it lists every single meeting they had, what time they had it, where they had it, who they had it with, and then a little blurb about what was said or what was done, which probably doesn't even scratch the surface, to be very honest with you. And I'm trying to remember if there was anything particular that was like a wow thing. And I will admit that, like I said, my absorption for this is somewhat tempered by my unfortunate bias against Mufon. So it could be that there are things in here that are far more exciting than I'm giving them credit for. But essentially, it was a whirlwind. Well, for example, Graham retired from the Air Force. National Security Working Group formed by bipartisan cross-jurisdiction national security matters before the Congress of Service. Graham compiled a distinguished record in the United States Air Force, active duty as Air Force lawyer. And it basically goes on and it gives you background on each one, but it doesn't necessarily say, and maybe Dave, I'm not quite sure what you're hoping to get out of this, but it wasn't that there was any specific, breaking news that came out of it from a content point of view. It was the fact that all these meetings were happening. It was the fact that Mufon was having all these meetings with all these people. It was who they were having meetings with, the topics they were having meetings, but there wasn't like any specific,
Well, what kind of topics were they talking about?
UFOs, Dave.
No.
Sorry.
Mufon talking UFOs. Breaking news here on the Media SOR.
I'm sorry, Dave. I just just the way you asked it. Like the entire point of Mufon's trip was to meet with basically anyone that they could within the government that would talk to them, and discuss what happens after the Gillibrand amendment. What are each groups going to do? How are they going to go about it? Who's going to be involved? But essentially, none of those details are. I mean, until we get, and I'm not even sure we have a rule, until we get minutes of each one of these roughly 20. Let's see, there's 28 points. Not all of them are meetings, so there's probably 18 meetings. Until we get meeting notes for all 18 meetings, it's pretty hard to say exactly what was covered. But I can say it was, it was specifically as related to what is going on related to all the action around the Gillibrand Amendment.
Well, I knew the meetings were taking place. Tom Whitmore had tipped me off to that. And I think it's absolutely great that after 50 years, and especially if you go back the last 4 years, when Jan Hudson was still in the head office of Mufon, they weren't doing anything in order to try and show or flex their muscles of being the top UFO group, not only in the United States, but across the world. And all Hudson wanted to do was team up with the To the Stars Academy and share information. And once again, that's where Mufon would get in trouble once again for trying to give away private information that they're supposed to protect. But under their new leadership, Dave there, who is leading the way, Dave McDonald, he seems to be, over the last 4 or 5 months at least, trying to right the ship and bring MUFON back to the status that it should have regarding the public's push on UFOs and what the government knows about it. MUFON has started putting out press releases again regarding, hey, if you want to talk with us about this situation, we are available. That is something they didn't do and dropped the ball on, in my opinion, for the previous 4 years when UFOs have been such a hot topic of discussion. So I think this is a good thing, John. I really do.
I'm trying, Dave. I'm trying. I take it back. It is absolutely a good thing. The challenge I have with it is that it appears, how do I put this? It comes off as a PR stunt. Okay, that's how this whole thing comes off to me. It comes off as a PR stunt to basically say, look, we're MUFON, we still exist. Look at all these famous people we met with. Look at all these things we met with, and all the people we talked to. And no, there's no substantial data, but oh look, and I'm hoping it's not that. I really am. But I'm just saying that's my first run off this, and so it's a little hard for me to get, to get super excited until I see a little more meat.
Well, you know what? MUFON has a lot more than what they discuss. That they do. And
One would hope,
I think they're trying to take a little bit of a different direction instead of trying to play the wannabe. Now they are really trying to push themselves back into the limelight of where they were when 10, 15, 20 years ago, before they started getting into troubles with all sorts of information being lauded out to the government, to Bigelow Industries and Bass and everything like that, and even the To the Stars Academy. I really believe that they are trying really hard to get back into that position where they're an authoritative figure, where they should have been right off the bat.
Yes, everything you just said is completely right, and they should be applauded for taking the right steps. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure they did it soon enough, and I guess time will tell.
Of course not. But that's for the previous regime to take blame for. I mean, the only thing Dave McDonald can do since taking over from Jan Hudson since his arrest, all right, they have to move up. And trust me, I'm the first one to point out that MUFON has made a lot of mistakes over the years. I'm not even, and I told, this is nothing I haven't told Tom Whitmore, or I had a conversation in San Francisco at UFOCon 2022 a week ago with Katie Grabowski, who is very high up in MUFON as well. And I said, you know what? The disappointing part for people who don't know, Jan Harzan, the former head of MUFON, about a year and a half ago, was actually arrested at Huntington Beach, California, for trying to solicit a teenage girl. And it put a very black eye on MUFON. And the sad part about that is I had made a recommendation to the board of directors because I know a couple of them. I felt bad for them. It was a horrible situation that they were put in. And I recommended that what they need to do is they need to get an independent investigator in there to try and clean, at least show through an investigator that this is a one-person event. It's not MUFON in general that is doing this. And
Yes.
unfortunately, the board shot that down.
Mhm.
They didn't think it was a good idea. Now, Tom Whitmore did, because I know he's the one who brought it forward. But I mean, either way, you know, MUFON has tripped over its own feet more times than not over the last 15, 16 years. And I can understand where people have a lot of distrust, but we have to be able to give credit where credit is due. They're trying to right the ship, and they are trying hard to watch who comes into their community now, who joins their organization. I mean, this is all stuff that I have personally questioned in the past, and I have no problem, not just because I'm speaking at a MUFON event in July.
Right.
No, but I have to.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. Totally. You know, you're right.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, that I will be speaking at
forgot about
MUFON Symposium in Denver, Colorado, July 8th to 10th. It has nothing to do with that. My job as a journalist and a radio show host, first and foremost, is to call out and a lot of the inaccuracies of the bigger named groups here. We may talk a lot of woo, and we may enjoy the woo on a nightly basis, but when it comes to real news, we have to call it down the middle, whether MUFON likes that or not, whether Elizondo likes it or not, or Two Stars.
I guess the challenge that I have is take away all the Harzan stuff altogether. I'm at a point where I'm struggling with seeing what the value add is of MUFON in its current condition, and that's just I think my challenge has much less to do with Harzan, much has to do with just the overall way MUFON has fit into this whole apparatus over the last 5-10 years. You know, I challenge. I'm very challenged with their function. But that's just my own personal bias. So,
well, you know what? Eventually, they will straighten out. It just takes time, and I think they're heading in a proper direction in order to do so. John, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to continue the Unbiased UFO Report when we get back on Spaced Out Radio. And coming up with the fedora wearing Jon Hudson, we're going to talk 2 car-sized balls of light, radiation burns, reports. Oh, we got an interesting portion next of the Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora wearing Jon Hudson from Silicon Valley in California. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio heads for home when we return. All right, we're clear.
I love it when I see, you know, because like just like in any community, you over the years you meet certain people that just really stand out to you as just standout people, and maybe they're not perfect, but they're good in your eyes, and they have something special about them. And then later on, you'll see some work that's done that's really cool, and then you start reading through it, and you realize it's one of them that did it. And it's such a cool feeling to see someone who you really respect and who you've supported, like, start coming out with some really good, some really good material. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a nice clean shave you had this evening, man.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Just pointing it out.
Thank you. Good stuff. Yeah, the world's a crazy place right now. Can't believe this. Can you imagine? Oh, we'll talk about it when the show gets back on. Did you see the artwork for Dave's article?
I'm sorry?
With the ship? Did you see the artwork for Dave's article on the two card-sized orbs? Someone did some art, like, showing a ship with these two giant glowing balls.
Hold on, I'm going to look here momentarily.
And the rotten part is, it's probably really accurate for all we know, right? But it just looks funny. It's like they were playing peekaboo. You can't see me.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is that, when you're on a ship like that, there's some percentage of you that have a really good understanding of how radiation works and how fields work and how all this stuff works. And you see a ball that big that looks like it might be made of some kind of a plasma type. The first thing they're all thinking is, oh my God, we're all going to get microwaved. I mean, it's like, which is, exactly what happens to some of these poor guys.
All right, Paul, do the friggin' bunny ears.
I keep seeing it.
Just do it. Oh, what's that? What's that behind my head? Is that rabbit ears?
Yeah.
Wow.
But with a handlebar mustache like that, he deserves the right to do that, man.
You would never, ever know those are human fingers.
Hey, Dave, did you see everyone talking about the face in your chair earlier?
No.
When you left, your chair turned, and there was something about just the way that your chair was, just crushed in one corner, that it looked like there was a face in your chair, and everyone was kind of freaking out about it. It was funny.
So, great. We have Charidolia now. Thank you, Magnus, for that awesome super chat. Very much appreciate it. Thank you also to Terry, Nikki, Ed, Patrick, Phil, Donnie, and Allison. Sensational Sherry Montgomery, how are you? Welcome back.
Can I ask a quick question? Paul, you're a normal sized human, right? Because it's really weird. Like, the way you're so far back with Dave up front, you look like you look like way compact. It's really trippy.
A little bit lower and further back, so the perspective on
Yep, exactly. Yep.
One-eye camera.
Charidolia.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Charidolia.
I think this is the first time I've ever seen another person in your studio.
Merle's been in here.
That's true.
In 2018, I did a show here, live here, with David Weatherly, Grant Cameron, and Ross Allison all in studio.
In this, really? Wow.
Yeah, that was cool.
Wow. Must have gotten hot.
It was really warm in here, not going to lie. It was really warm in here. We got 20 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Grant hanging out at your house.
Grant's a blast to hang out with.
He's a nice guy.
10 seconds.
Such a nice guy.
All right, here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. The fedora-wearing Jon Hudson returns for the Unbiased UFO Report, and an interesting story breaking from director Dave Beatty, who's been on the pulse of what's happening with the United States Navy and their encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. John, this story actually hit, I believe, the New York Post. Your microphone's on mute, John.
Sorry, I apologize. I was trying to get my dog to come over. No. Yeah, this was originally published in the Sun, now in the New York Post. This is an amazing story, Dave. I'm always, or is it Beatty or Beatty? Beatty?
Beatty.
Beatty. Okay, Beatty. Okay. Dave Beatty just did a great job, and if all of you are familiar with his work, you've seen his Nimitz encounter video that he did. The guy does exquisite work. So these two objects were basically reported as being cited in October of 2021. So this is a very, very recent event. Okay. The two objects were said to have lurked near a 40,000-ton amphibious assault ship for several nights while they were on a training exercise off the East Coast. The phenomenon, as described by sources familiar, included odd and menacing balls of light that were said to have been following around a half mile behind the ship, about 200 feet above the water. Beatty was contacted by now retired Marine officer identified as Mark regarding the strange episode, which is where his information came from. The USS Kearsarge, I'm hoping, had been training at that time, including a new system that was that's funny. It was actually testing a new system designed to take down enemy drones. Coincidental. Not really, because I think everything has to do with drones these days. And so this included some of the anti-drone Ghostbuster style backpacks and so forth that some of the different groups are testing. Some of that stuff's really fun to watch. But the thing is that this was another one of those cases where because it was military, we only get so much information. I mean, essentially, other than claims that there's been that no one can talk about it, that no one has seen any conclusions, that yes, they were encouraged to report it, and that the stigma is better. I mean, there's lots of like good stuff that was reported, but unfortunately, and I'm not trying to imply that if this was a civilian case that we would instantly get a conclusion either. I shouldn't imply that, but it's just the frustration with the fact that in many cases we're getting a whole lot of piqued interest items, but we're not getting any conclusions or follow through as to what it all means, which is just challenging.
Right. And obviously they're not going to disclose what they were training for or anything like that. But what is interesting is that this Mark guy was informed along with everybody else who saw it that the objects were, in quotation marks, not ours. So they obviously had a bead on them. Oh,
yes. Well, look. I mean, okay. I don't know about this ship in particular. No, it does. This ship did. So I don't know if you can see in the ship, but there's a little object down there in the corner of the ship. That little object, that's a phalanx system, right? So that is a system that is essentially a Gatling gun that is completely automated. Okay, and it will take out absolutely any target that goes anywhere near the ship. and it's always running. You have to turn it off if you know someone's coming, right? So those systems are active. So if those systems are not firing on these objects, then it means someone has deliberately turned them off.
Well, do you really want to piss off aliens and start an intergalactic war by shooting down their orbs?
Yeah, but of course not. But it just shows that your point about them being aware of the orbs is correct.
Well, it's very interesting because I think we're going to see more sailors come out like this. And the fact that this story is potentially not even a year old, this is fresh news, you know, and the fact that they were told to report it in also shows the attitude of difference than what we saw during the Nimitz report.
Leaps and bounds. And the fact that, I mean, basically, this whole report is a nice iterative edition of a report showing that we've made progress, that we're getting more information, we're getting more recent information, we're getting more actionable information. We are still not getting anywhere near enough information.
All right, let's move on to the next story. Still sticking with UFOs, but this one gets into the experiential side of everything, John, where a report has come down in the Sun about people who've had encounters with UFOs experiencing everything from hair loss and headaches to fevers, nightmares, nosebleeds, heart palpitations, and burnt skin.
Yes. And it should be of note that where this information came from is from one of those DIRDs, one of those 30, was it 38? I think 38 been made public, 38 documents that were created as a part of the OSAP program. Basically, it was one of those documents that was recently released with the title Anomalous Acute and Subacute Field Effects on Human Biological Tissues. There was an entire report on this, okay? And so, this report basically, I haven't had a chance to read it in depth myself, so I don't know how much of it is actually available to be read and how much of it is redacted. But essentially, the thing is that for anyone that studied Rendlesham, for anyone that studied any of these events where there's been any kind of close contact, nothing in here is shocking, right? I mean, this is all, but the fact that they are, they're talking about the fact that there is a useful database which listed the biological effects of UFO sightings on humans and their frequency. Although that one was evidently compiled by Mufon. That's funny. But the thing is that, I mean, this is, oh, that's interesting. And it specifically mentions an AN3 interaction with AN3 entities. Oh, such as near-death experiences and religious miracles as classes AN4. Wow. So they've really actually gone out of their way to actually classify all this. So this is, I mean, but the thing is, this is why I was saying the other night, these reports are worth going through. A lot of them have incredible tidbits of information in them. The fact that the Sun decided to pick up on this one and is reporting on it, and in their reporting is showing, the cover page of the, of the DIRD. This is new territory. This is really new territory.
I'm going to tell you something. And if a lot of people haven't caught in on this, this is what the Easter eggs have been that Luis Elizondo has been saying on multiple podcasts and radio shows over the last few months. And everybody thought Elizondo was going off his rocker a little bit regarding the experiential side of things and the after effects of this type of communication or contact, whatever you want to call it. This report in the DIRDs is, in my opinion, some of the largest news, John, that we could even talk about regarding this, because this shows that the U.S. government has been tracking ET contact, just like we were able to provide. And remember, we were providing it hypothetically on this show, saying, does the U.S. government have a list of people who are contactees? What would happen if you found out that the U.S. government knew you had a report to Mufon or somebody else, or they got your name just by tracking the ships, that you were taken, and now they want to see the results of what's happened? All right. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot happening with this. And like I said, Elizondo has been saying this for months. We've heard a lot of podcasts out there critiquing and ripping him apart for even going down this road. And yet here we are with it in official government information. Chalk that one up again for a win for Elizondo.
Oh, I absolutely agree. In spades. This is complete support of exactly what Elizondo's been saying. I could not agree more. And the thing is that if if you are completely unaware of the amount of study that has been done of the biological effects on human tissue, if you are ignorant to that aspect of the field, you're doing everyone and yourself a grand disservice, and this should be one hell of a wake-up call for you, because you can forget everything you want to talk about who they are and what they are. The fact that there are humans suffering physical harm from being in contact with them is a big deal.
Well, I want to go back to this list here, because as a contactee, I will say this. I obviously have not had hair loss because my hair is magnificent. I have had headaches afterwards. I don't recall ever having a fever. I have had nightmares. I have had nosebleeds. I have had heart palpitations. I have not had burnt skin. Okay.
Yeah, the challenge with these, Dave, is that yes, they are publishing them in the report. These were actually compiled by Mufon in 1996.
Yeah.
So my point is that this isn't a direct result of the OSAP.
No, I understand that.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but the only other point I was going to bring up really quick is that while a lot of these effects are somewhat unique and specific, about like 75% of these are listed as the side effects of like nearly every medication that they sell on TV.
Very true. Very true.
That's a challenge.
You can also add in their scratches in your body, scoop marks.
There's a lot of very specific things that you should never get with anything
becoming
else.
extremely tired, feeling like they haven't slept all night, becoming more introverted if they were extremely extroverted at the time. There's a lot that goes in on that, man. A lot that goes in. And I'm just happy that it's in there. And once again, I think it's great that an article like this really confirms what Elizondo has been speaking of regarding the experiencers. And for so long, John, when the To the Stars Academy came out regarding the reports, they were trying to keep the experiencers away from UAP. And now we're seeing, with this being released in the DIRDs, that this is something that there is a coordinated's not the right word. There is a combinable after effect of seeing UFOs and having these incidents happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one other point I want to make real quick is that I'd love to get the original MUFON document and see and diff them and see what was changed, because if you notice, it's not abductions, it's apparent abductions, and it's not time loss, it's perceived time loss. Both of those qualifiers would be required to be put in if you were going to be circulating this document to a wider audience. And so that might indicate that OSAP actually have augmented this beyond what Mufon originally had.
Well, OSAP 2 also allegedly said UFOs were Russia or Chinese drones or technology, or they're going to protect their butt on their wording very carefully. This is one of those read between the lines scenarios that we always talk about.
Oh yes, no, I mean totally. I mean, and a lot of this is, I mean, people are asking why were the shapes omitted from the document. It's like, really? Like, you guys don't like? Did you pay attention to anything about like all the shapes being cut out on the tarmac of the runway at Area 51, and the satellites looking at the IR imprint to figure out what the shapes of the spy? So the shapes of the planes are everything. They're everything. The shape of the planes, you can tell everything from the shape of a plane. So of course that's going to be kept secret, because if any of those are actually U.S. planes, if any of those might be U.S. planes, if you're just trying to use them to cover up things that you're doing, the last thing you want to do is allow everyone to look and see what the differences are. It's insane.